The forest is waking, and the first wave of spring greens have now covered the earth in wild abundance, and there are signs that there is no turning back toward a sleeping earth. I look around and I am overwhelmed by the gentle spring arising, and because spring has settled in so gradually where I am, wild ones, I have had time to dream and create with her wildlings. So today, I have to share with you my newly found dream wild forest cake recipe. Everyone has a favorite cake, and it wasn't until I finished crafting this cake that I realized this is truly my dream cake. Many of you know I am in love with the woodland, so it's only natural that this cake is the one. Before we go forth, I wanted to remind you to click the like and subscribe to this channel should you wish to. Come with me as we craft this amazing cake and keep on watching. When I was exploring wild cake recipes online, I found so many different recipes, but settled in on this wonderful recipe from the Wondersmith. I left the link to her blog post below for you, and today I am excited to share my experience with this recipe, and my heart is full of joy because just look at this cake. Nettle is the star of this cake. Her young shoots are tender and full of nutrients. She hasn't yet gone to seed, so all of her essence is alive in her leaves. I'm a bit of a brave one, wild ones, and harvesting without gloves, yeah, not recommending it, but if you're new to nettle harvesting, definitely consider wearing long gloves and protective clothing, for she has a very strong sting, which can last for several hours if you touch her. Even when working with her to pull leaves off, blanching her, bathing her in cold water, as this recipe requires to keep her deep green color for this cake, I would recommend protecting yourself. I have a different method. I tend to whisper to the nettle plant prior to harvesting. I warn her about what's to come. In this way, I am sharing why I'm harvesting her, and there seems to be a sense of peace within myself as I do this, and I notice that somehow this affects how much I am stung. It may sound a bit odd and kooky, but it's always worked for me. So to make this cake, we are going to make a lemon-flavored nettle cake batter and a buttercream frosting. The buttercream is made with hints of flavors from spruce tips, vanilla, and grapefruit. In my experience making this cake, I can already tell you that I would infuse the vanilla with the spruce 2 weeks prior, or I would have simmered the tips and the vanilla for an hour or two to pull out that spruce flavor. I would also consider using spearmint, any kind of evergreen, or juniper. Obviously edible, edible plants. All of these flavors are really perfect for this type of wild cake. And spearmint and juniper are my favorite flavors, so I'm definitely going to experiment with those two in the future. And if you have any tips or tricks that you have tried, wild ones, leave a comment below for us all. But the grapefruit really is the star of this buttercream. Let's first make the cake batter. As I harvested the nettle, prepared her by removing most of her stems, then blanching her for 2 to 4 minutes, then soaking her straight away in cold water, I engaged, as I often do when I am practicing kitchen witchery, in manifestation magic mode. Thinking of Nettle and who she is, knowing her deeply, I decided to go with the theme of new growth. The moon was about to go new when I first started making this cake, and this cake became a symbol of new growth in my own life. In fact, after I ate this cake, I went through a transformation myself, and that is what I love about kitchen witchery. It can just be a cake, or it can be more. So my goal was to pull together about 2 cups of pure ground nettle, and I noticed how stringy she got when I was grinding her. So I used my high-powered blender with some water to grind her a bit better and created a paste almost by straining the mixture. Because I used this method, I ended up needing about 3/4 a cup of almond milk, which was not called for in the original recipe, but it did help in the end to lighten the cake and bring in more air to the cake so that the cake was not dense as it might have been. First, I cream the sugar and butter, and there is a tendency for the cream to split if you leave it too long after creaming, so have all of your ingredients ready to go next to you. That would be the lemon juice, vanilla, eggs, lemon zest, and nettle puree. Once the sugar and butter are smooth and airy, add the other ingredients slowly. Finally, the flour with the salt and baking powder already mixed in is added. Add water or almond milk if you feel you need to. I had to do this, like I said, as the mixture was too thick. I used 2 spring pans, filled them and smoothed them out, and then baked them for 30 minutes at 325. The toothpick came out clean and these babies were done. I cooled them for about an hour or 2 before I made the buttercream and decorated. I doubled the buttercream recipe to have plenty to work with and added 2 cups of unsalted butter, a pinch or 2 of salt, 8 cups of powdered sugar, and 3 tablespoons of grapefruit juice. I added 1 tablespoon of vanilla infused with spruce tips, but I would probably use juniper or pine next time. Pine was actually recommended in the original recipe. The original recipe called for fir needles, and I just used spruce tips. I got it in my head that it was spruce tips, and I just went for it. There was a slight flavor there in the end, but it would have been more foresty with pine. And then the decorating began. I spread the buttercream between the 2 cakes and all over the tops and the sides. I used some plastic pieces for decor because I wanted Fern to be part of the cake, as she is one of my favorites, but I didn't want to pick Fern to decorate with. I wanted to leave her in the forest. I used lots of edible plants, but I also have some pieces that I ate around, like the birch bark. But then, just like that, she is born. And I have to say, she is just a glorious treasure of a treat. And now I want one at every birthday. Thanks for coming to play today, wild ones. And thanks for coming and engaging in this experience with me. Like, it's so meaningful to me, and I really appreciate you being here. Blessings to your springtime. Happy just passing by the new moon. And as always, my dears, come and find me again.